Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make these adorable little pin cushions. These pin cushions are so fun. They're great for using up scrap fabric. You can make them in any size that you want. I made one to fit my little milk glass jar here. I love it so much. And the other ones I just made for fun out of leftover fabric, so they're all different sizes and super cute. Let's go ahead and get started. Supplies for this project are super easy. I have a couple different methods to use. I prefer this method to this method. As you can see when you turn them over, this one still looks cute and this one is gathered. And I don't love the way this looks, but I will talk about how to make this particular one. The other thing you can do to hide this gather is to glue a little star tip cut out of felt on there, and that hides that gather a little bit better than my little button as well. But let's go ahead and get started with today's tutorial. This is going to be super easy. All you're going to need is some fun fabric, and I have two pieces of fabric that I just placed right sides together, and then I used one of my bowl shapes to just trace a circle around. This particular bowl is about 4.5 inches wide. I used this larger bowl, this is just a cereal bowl, to make this pin cushion. The bowl shape got 6 inches in diameter, and it made a pin cushion that's about 5 inches. So you'll just need some sort of shape to make your circle, and you can make it any size that you like. The other thing you're going to want is probably some fun buttons. You could also, if you don't want to put a button on here, cut out a little star shape out of some green felt and just glue that to the top. You could still sew a button to the top of that too. That would be really cute. And I would just use some fabric glue for that, but I didn't want to do those, so I'm just going to be using a button. You'll also need either some pearl cotton, or I'm actually using some embroidery floss for today's video, and I left all 6 strands together, and that's what I did on both of these. And I like having it nice and thick like that because it's really easy to see, and I used a complementary color, so I think it's a lot of fun. You'll also need some scissors, and then you'll also need some sort of needle. I prefer a little bit of a longer needle. I am using these Tulip Milner's needles, 3, 5, and 7. So there's 3 different sizes in here, and I just grabbed the longest size that they had. And then you'll also need some scissors. I'm going to be using my pinking shears, but you could also just use regular scissors. And then of course you'll need something to stuff your pillow with. You can either use pillow stuffing, or you can use crushed walnut shells. Those are also really good for these because they help sharpen your needles when you stick them into your pin cushion. But today I'm just going to be using the stuffing. So we're going to start off by picking a size, and I went ahead and just flipped it over, traced it on my fabric. I also made a stop and start mark. So what we're going to do is backstitch right here. So all the way around our circle, come to our finishing point, and you're going to backstitch right here, and then we'll cut away this excess fabric. All right, so I've sewn all the way around. I backstitched at my stops and starts, and now I'm going to just take my pinking shears, and I'm going to trim about 1/4 inch away from my stitch line. This marker is removed by heat. It's a friction erasable pen, and so I just used my iron to get rid of my blue mark. And now I'm going to just take my pillow and turn it right side out. One tool I forgot to mention is my point turner / Hera marker. This is from Clover, and I love using this to do anything where I'm having to flip it right side out. And then I use this curved edge to just smooth that edge out. And then I do roll in this edge before I stuff it, just to help crease it a little bit, so it's a little bit easier for me to figure out where that edge is once I'm done stuffing the pillow. And I'm just gonna crease it with my fingers. Next thing we're going to do is just stuff our pillow. If you are using the walnut shells, I like to use a funnel, and I just stick it down in there and then just slowly pour the shells in till it's full. I'm just going to be using my stuffing, and I like to pull it apart so it's not so clumpy. I think that helps it just form into the pillow a little bit better. And then I just stuff it a little bit at a time. I think that's pretty good. Now you can either machine stitch this closed, or you can just hand stitch it. I machine stitched this one, so you can definitely see that edge a little bit, so it doesn't look quite as nice. So let's go ahead and hand stitch this. So I'm just gonna grab some thread, and this is just regular, this is just my thread that I use for my quilts. So it's just a 50 weight. And I'm going to just roll a couple of knots in the end of it. Then I'm going to come up from underneath this fold so it's hidden in there. And I'm going to try and come up along this fold line where my stitches were and just pull that up. And then I turn my pillow around and I'm just going to, you can either whip stitch it, you can do a hidden stitch. I'm going to do that. So I just take a little bite right there, pull it through, take a little bite off of that side, pull it, and you just do that all the way down, and then you can pull it at the end and tighten it up. And I just try and stay right along that folded edge. So I'm just taking a bite out of it, out of that edge right there, and just going back and forth, and then when you pull it tight, it just seals that edge and you can't hardly see that seam. And then when I get to the very end, I'm just going to leave a loop. I'm going to leave it so I have a loop right here. I'm going to go through that loop twice, so there's once, twice, and then just pull it tight. And I actually like to do it twice just because I'm paranoid. So again, so I do that again, so just go through that loop twice. And there you go, you can't really see that. I didn't do the best job because I'm on camera here. But then I just take that thread, pull it through, and then just clip it off. So it's buried inside of our pincushion. And then I'm going to just make sure that it's all evened out in there because it gets pushed away from your opening. All right, and so our pincushion is ready to go to the next step. And now we're going to be making our little sections. And then we're going to come up from the bottom of our pincushion to the top. It doesn't matter which side is which on these. As you can see, they're pretty much the same. And then just try and come up somewhere in the middle. And if you don't like where it is, pull it out and do it again. And again, I'm using all 6 strands of some embroidery floss here. And don't pull it all the way. We are going to leave about a 5-inch tail or so. We're going to use that to tie off when we're done. So just leave that tail hanging. Next, we're going to wrap around, all the way around, and meet back here in the center. I'm going to take my needle and I'm just going to go under that thread so that it catches and just pull it all the way through. Next, I'm going to turn my pincushion, and again I'm going to go around and meet back in the center. And again, I'm going to go under that top thread that I just went towards the top with. Hopefully that makes sense. And so that it catches. And you don't want to pull too tight right now because you've got this loose tail. So just be careful of that. We'll tighten it up when we're done. All right. Next, we're going to, again, we've caught it. So now we're going to go opposite. So just pick another direction to go. Go around. Go underneath your top thread. Okay. And then let's go one more. So I do it both halves, and then I half both of the halves. So I have 8 little sections when I'm done, kind of like a pumpkin. All right. Now, once you're happy with that, and you can adjust these too if you feel like one is a little bit fatter, you can grab these strings and just scoot them around so they're just a little bit more evenly placed. My thread is coming out over here, so I'm going to cross down on top of that and come back up somewhere in the middle up here. And now we're going to take our 2 threads and just pull nice and tight. I'm going to actually go grab this thread so that it goes underneath it. So when we tie it, we're going to tie it down. And then we can go ahead and just tie that. And if you want to get somebody to help you hold it down, a buddy, I think that's helpful. But I'm just going to tie a knot in this. Next, you're just going to pull those strings tight, hold them down, and just tie a knot. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is add our button, and you can add a button to both sides if you want. This I'm going to leave as the bottom side because it looks a little bit neater, and then our button is going to cover up this top part. So in order to add the button, we're just going to go through the button and then back down through the button. like that. And I actually, you could tie it off right here if you want, but I feel like it's still loose. So I actually go back down the pincushion, come up from the bottom, get my button on there nice and tight, and then cross over those threads and go back up somewhere in the middle under here. And then I grab my tail once again, and again I just tie that knot just to secure it. And I like to double my strand when I did that. I learned that when my kids played hockey because it forms a really nice tight knot. So instead of just making a loop and going through once, I'll loop it through and go through twice. And then you just pull it tight underneath your button. And then all you have to do is clip off your little tails, and voila. You've got a cute little pincushion. And here's the difference in sizes based on our bowls. And if you'll notice, your pincushion will fit inside whatever bowl you use. So I think that's just a good way to estimate what size your final pincushion is going to be based on your bowl. Okay, so let's talk about this one just a little bit because this one has a gathered bottom, and I personally don't love the way this looks. I actually prefer them to look a little bit more like this, but you could use either method. All right, so for this method where you're using a larger circle and just gathering it up, I did just that. I traced my bowl on a one piece of fabric. This is the shape I used to make this one. This is the same size I used to make this one. So if you're gathering it up like this, it's going to be about half the size of your original circle. So just keep that in mind. And then because I want it to be a little bit bigger, I'm actually going to sew around the outside edge of my drawn circle. So I took some thread. I have 3 strands of thread here, and then I tied them all together in a knot at the end. And then I'm just going to start doing a running stitch all the way around. And a longer needle is good for this because you can squeeze a little bit more fabric on there. Try and make them even because that will change how even your pleats are. But I also just kind of go for it. I'm not quite that precise, but you can be. And they actually have tools for these as well. They have yo-yo makers is what they're called. And you can use that to make these little pincushions. And then you can just start gathering it slowly. And I put my hand in there so that I can keep the shape but also continue to gather. Just like that. And then again, you're just going to grab some of your fluff, or you can also use the walnut shells. If you do the walnut shells, I like to put a dab of hot glue in the center when you're done, and it keeps them all stuck in there so they don't come out because this hole isn't, you'll see when we gather it up, the hole isn't like super tight. I always put more than I think I need because it gets squished down in there. And if I'm doing it with walnut shells, I'll do it over a little tray and I'll pour in a bunch and then I'll tighten it. And as I tighten it, I just dump out whatever doesn't fit basically. Okay? So then you have your little ball. And I'll usually go around a few more pieces of fabric just so that it just pulls it. You just want it to pull nice and tight. Once it's tight, I'll start going back and forth. Across that opening. Just going through the folds of fabric. And then once I'm happy with it, I can tie that off. And again, I'll go through my loop twice. And then pull it, and then I'll probably do another one. I'll grab like these, and again go through that loop twice, and pull it nice and tight. And there you have your shape, and then you're going to just finish it off the exact same way I did by adding the sections and adding a button to the middle. And then the only difference on this one is I added a button on this side and on this side, and that helped cover up the section where we gathered it. All right, that's it. So we've got our 2 different styles. Both are super easy. You can do whichever you prefer. If you have fun making these pincushions, just make sure to tag me on social media. You can also post your projects in our Sew With Me group on Facebook. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. You can also hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming fun. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I will see you next time.